All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, as we've discussed quite a bit today, President Zelensky is in Washington yesterday to ask for even more weapons from the Biden administration and to laud Congress for including $45 billion more of aid to Ukraine in its multi-trillion-dollar spending bill to be passed before the new year. It is genuinely difficult to describe just how extraordinary the sum of an additional $45 billion to Ukraine is in the context of everything that we have given to them so far and everything that has been given in the total conflict. Let's start with my first and favorite comparison. How does our aid to Ukraine stack up against our so-called European allies? With the additional $45 billion to Ukraine, total amount of U.S. aid will surpass nearly twice that of the entire European continent, which is pledged for Ukraine combined comes to a measly $51 billion. The additional $45 billion would bring the U.S. to approximately $100 billion in aid to Ukraine. So double Europe. Got it. When you break it down by country, though, it's even more pathetic. The United Kingdom, supposedly one of the richest and most powerful nations on Earth, has given only a total of nearly $9 billion. Germany, the largest economy in Europe and one of the top 5 economies in the world, has given less. France, the second largest economy on the continent, a great power in its own right, less than $1 billion. We are getting suckered here to a historic degree. But outside of the theater itself, it's also worth stepping back and considering how extraordinary the new sum is just on its face in U.S. history. The additional $45 billion to Ukraine is somehow $8 billion more than Biden even asked for. Biden only asked Congress for an additional $37 billion in aid. So that begs the question, what does Congress know about Ukraine's situation that the administration does not? The answer is nothing. They just added it on. And that extra $8 billion exceeds the total amount of military aid given to Ukraine almost more than any other country on Earth. Extraordinary. But let's continue down the rabbit hole. I became curious because I happen to have been covering wars for a long time. How does our total military aid to Ukraine stack up against, let's say, Afghanistan? Well, we were in Afghanistan for 20 years. In that time, and I'm talking here purely about direct military aid to Afghanistan, not spending on our own forces, we spent about $100 billion to train and equip the Afghan National Security Forces. So you can do the math here. That means that we have spent on Ukraine in 1 year what now exceeds the entire U.S. military aid to Afghanistan in a 20-year period. But because I'm me, I kept pulling the data. It's all inflation adjusted to constant dollars, just so you're wondering. How does it stack up against, let's say, Vietnam? Lo and behold, the total amount to Ukraine now also exceeds all U.S. military aid to the country of South Vietnam between the years of 1956 and 1975. Again, this is adjusting for inflation. What's extraordinary about these two comparisons is not just the dollar figure, but considering that Russia only invaded Ukraine less than a year ago. We have dispersed an insane amount of military aid to Ukraine in just 1 year, one that hardly has an equal in the post-World War II era, especially considering that there were actually American lives on the ground in Vietnam and Afghanistan during our presence there. So it wasn't just geopolitical. Supposedly, it was at least to protect our own citizens. In this conflict, there's none of that. And then finally, my favorite comparison. The country that Ukraine is fighting, Russia, has an entire military budget of $84 billion, meaning total U.S. military aid, and especially total aid to Ukraine, now vastly outpaces the entire military budget for a great power nation with nuclear weapons. And what's crazy is that this $84 billion is already a substantial increase for Russia by an additional $13 billion from just this year prior. Considering that Russia is not just fighting in Ukraine, but as an entire force that also needs to worry about. Consider how crazy this is. I want to end it that way. I got nothing against Ukraine. They are a just cause in this fight. They were invaded, and if I were them, you bet I would also be begging for every gun and bullet that anyone has to spare. But we're not them. We have to consider what's good for us. And what I see is a situation, emotion clearly is clouding America's judgment as to just how much of a raw deal that we are getting here. This is about European security, right? So why don't the Europeans pay for it? For those saying they're paying in gas, so what? It's their territory, allegedly existential for them. Well, then they should pony up existential amounts of dollars. Do you really believe if there was a conflict here in the Western Hemisphere that they would lift a finger for us in some sort of squabble with Mexico, for example? Obviously, the answer is no. My final challenge to the Ukraine firsters is this question. Is there any limiting principle at all to your want to help Ukraine? The real world is about trade-offs and balancing. We can all wish victory to Ukraine. We are also forced to ask how, what, why, with what, and how long will it be attained? The longer this goes on, the more this entire edifice of the so-called transatlantic alliance is being revealed as a farce. And sometime soon, when America actually does need help, you're going to find out just how unappreciated our role abroad over the last 75 years has really been. And that's why, look, you put it up against Afghanistan.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.